Hello, guys. I am Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. I'm here today. We're going to talk a little bit about this rumor out there, rumor of a Transformers G.I. Joe based off the Skybound universe, Robert Kirkman, all of that good stuff he's been doing with the Energon verse. Basically, it's like, what if G.I. Joe and Transformers shared the same universe? I think he's had some really good takes, at least with the Transformers series. I have not read the G.I. Joe stuff, though. I want to point that out. But look, the idea of this universe being one, a lot of fans like. A lot of people at Hasbro like it. So much so they were wanting this way back when IDW was still publishing. Now, there's a couple of things I want to talk about this. Right now, this is all rumor, but supposedly they're saying this is getting ready to be announced at San Diego Comic-Con in a few weeks. So the rundown is, and where I'm going with this video, there's a lot of angles I could go, but right now it's speculation. But I really want to talk about what's the interesting part of this. This is one of the few comic book properties that I think have actually been handled correctly, as the American comic book industry is going through bankruptcy. We're getting a Riri Williams Ironheart TV show nobody asked for. There was a comic nobody asked for. Stuff like that being crammed down everybody's throat. Meanwhile, things like Invincible are blowing up on Amazon. The comics that have been top sellers, surprisingly so, because it's not exactly like the Transformer books ever went away. IDW was publishing them. Nobody cared. The IDW was publishing G.I. Joe. Again, nobody cared. Skybound gets these properties, gets them away from IDW. And right away, there's hits. People are losing their minds. Transformers, I like it enough, but I don't think the artwork's the best in the world. It's not the worst, but it's just a competent comic. And I feel like there's a lesson here in just like storytelling first, right? And that Marvel and DC have kind of lost audience and interest in a lot of their comic reading audience because of it. Now, this is the part I don't like of the video, and why I think people at Marvel and DC should really be taking note of this is this has only been happening for maybe a couple of years, right? And since Skybound has gotten a hold of this, research and development on the idea of G.I. Joe and Transformers and a new take, more little adult edgy take too on Transformers, where basically maybe not all the Autobots wake up at once. All of this stuff, they're fighting for energy and trying to bring their comrades back and all of this. It's a little bit of a fresh take, but still feels genuine in the G1 roots. So you're kind of rebooting something with an already built-in fan base, but being very truthful. And that's something that Marvel and DC, quite honestly, can't do. Frankly, most franchises F that up, period. Right? So you got that part of it. Now, I've always known that even when these properties were at IDW, it was pretty much a rumor mill that, and especially in the last Transformers movie, there was a little nod to G.I. Joe there at the end, that this is something that Hasbro and Paramount, people really wanted, is a crossover type movie. Ideally, you're going to bring in two fandoms together to sell the same movie ticket to, the same merchandise. It's kind of a geek's wet dream. So this is something on a studio level they very much want, right? IDW just couldn't get heat going in the comics. And it's interesting because this is part of the video that I hate to circle the research and development part of comics. It's oftentimes the thing I hate, but this is a prime example of where it's actually operating like it should if you are only doing research and development comics. Now, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that Robert Kirkman doesn't love Transformers, and because I know he is. I've seen him at cons walking around trying to find a Jetfire toy and stuff like that. Like, the guy likes Transformers. He's a fanboy. But this is still a research and development project, I believe, in the sense that now it's looked at as being a TV show for a streaming network. Now, it being a TV show for a streaming network, this is obviously going to get more eyes on two properties. It'll probably be like behind, I don't know, Amazon or HBO, whoever, right? This goes to, and or Paramount Plus or something. But the idea is it's probably going to have a little edgier take. It's going to be built for an older audience, which could be good or bad. Really depends on how you look at it. There's already a built-in anywhere male demographic from 22 probably to 55 audience already built in for this. So you could, and GI Joe and Transformers, you should be hitting two birds with one stone in this case. So this could be a really big show, but even if it's not, and I think it will be, it's still, again, more research and development for the concept of these two properties to work together in a movie. And that's where all of this is going to. And the reason I underscored this is a great example of the American comic book industry and why Marvel and DC should absolutely be taking note of this, is it points out the dysfunctioning efforts of the corporate structure of comics. And not saying Skybound isn't, but maybe it's more controlled and more not political, not crazy SJW type woke stories. Maybe I'm not saying some of those aren't going to work in, but for the most part, they're worried about the story and characters and the reaction from fans, I feel, at Skybound. Now, you know, they have a success rate. Obviously, Robert does with his properties and so on and so forth. And that's probably how they ended up with his property to begin with. But everything, every dollar, every editor at Marvel and DC, and everything getting ready to happen with the James Gunn DC universe, all of that stuff, this is a competitive force. These books are outselling a lot of DC and Marvel comics, and they shouldn't be, because Transformers is a very old property that keeps getting like new continuity, and it always reverts back to G1 base characters and a new cartoon or something like that. But this is one of the few times since the Dreamwave line that this is actually getting some sort of like built up, hyped fan base for this stuff. And people are actually connected to these stories. And when you're looking at comics as a research and development aspect, which I hate that part of comics, but we can't overlook it in this corporate field, is Marvel and DC have to perform like Skybound is with this, because Mickey Mouse is going to keep dumping money for New York real estate for these editors to sit in a building somewhere to not perform with these IPs. I've yet to really feel that Disney as a company really cares about comics or comic publishing. I could arguably say the same thing with DC Comics. You guys cannot be outperformed with a property like GI Joe and Transformers. Yes, they are big properties. I'm not saying they're not, but as far as comic books go, that's not usually they're not the top sellers. You know, GI Joe has a historic run and so on and so forth. And again, nobody's really talking about this too much, but again, Skybound has now two of the top selling crowdfunded campaigns ever for a comic book, and that was for the GI Joe and Transformers compendium. Now, I don't put a lot of stock in that because it's just a bunch of comics that were made back in the day, not new Skybound stuff. But still, why didn't IDW ever do that? What was wrong with IDW that they just couldn't do something as simple as that box set? All those comics were done. They could have ran that. I mean, I was talking about this the other day, but roughly that's about $8 million, $7 to $8 million worth of comics that IDW just pissed away. They just said, we're not going to the bank on that. And they had the rights to it. They could have always done it. But why did it have to go to Skybound before they did it? And again, I could angle this as like, IDW stupid. They don't know what they're doing. We all know that. But I just don't know if like there's that type of a cutting edge, innovative person at these companies anymore. And some of the guys that are at Skybound, were kind of the sharper editors that were at Marvel and at DC. So a lot of these guys have been like kind of like poached from DC that are now working in editorial at Skybound to try to get this series going, this type of shared universe. And now we're getting right off the bat, a TV show. And then what if that TV show is a hit? It's like, this is, in my opinion, just doesn't look good for Marvel and DC if the corporate owners, I mean, if I'm seeing this, the guys cutting checks to the whole staff at Marvel, the whole staff at DC, they have to see this. Like, it's like, what are you guys even doing? Where's my new TV show? Why isn't this universe working better? Why is the Falcon Sam Wilson character nobody gives a elf about? We gave you guys buttloads of money and blank checks to make this character work, and we ended up with a movie that breaks even at best, and nobody likes, and he's not merchandisable. You know, eventually the corporate owners are going to wake up. And I really don't know what that means for Marvel and DC at the end of it. If you guys will, let me know. Do you guys put a lot of stock in the idea of this TV show? Are you excited for it? I'm sure some of you guys have been reading the books. Also, if you guys will, please go right here. Check out Shane Davis's Annatomic. This is a spin-off series from our smash hit comic Inglorious Rex. If you like monsters, you liked Rocky, you'll absolutely love Inglorious Rex. I'll leave you guys with a trailer for this smash hit comic up for pre-order in our campaign right now. 19 days left. We'll catch you guys again with another video.
If fighting was a god, I would worship him. I would bow to him. I would pray for victory. For he only grants opportunities. But behind every god lurks a devil. And the devil wants me to take a dive. My name is Annatomic. And this is how my legend was made.